I want to thank Hollowhead for setting this all up for me. I'm Dr. Russ. Welcome to our home, or I should say specifically Dr. Paula's kitchen in our home here in Southeast Michigan. This is part 2 of a video to make you pellet sharp, slug sharp, as you use your guns. So if you want to know what was said in this first half, just look at part 1. Today is part 2. Let's take a look here at some 22 caliber pellets, if you will. And they're found right here. Here are some 22 calibers. This first one came from Metal Mag's Predator. And you see, it's like a nozzler partition, except that's not a plastic point, that's an alloy point of some sort. That helps it go down range, stay on course, and then it's a hollow head once it hits the target, and a 20 becomes a 30 or 40 caliber pellet going in. This next one here is a sharp hunter's point. In this particular case, it's Ruger's 22 caliber hunter's point, and we see it right here. Great, it pierces targets and critters better, but if it's any way doesn't leave your barrel correctly centered, then that air can push it sideways and we get flyers. The all-around favorite is the dome-shaped pellet. Here's one that comes from Gamo. This is the TS-22. Now they all make them, so understand that part. Right next to it here is a Jsb Exact Pellet. Notice that it's a little shinier than this one. What does that mean? That means that JSB puts a little more alloys in with the lead than, in this case, Gamo did. Alloys make it harder. When it hits, the impact is better, but it also allows that dome head to be a little smoother and rounder and air resistant, if you will. Next to it here is a Crossman Piranha. We see the tin of it over here. It's a form of hollow head. I think there's a lot of marketing in this. I could be wrong. But it has a head that's quite jagged in the front. And I'm a little bit concerned when I use these as to what the air is going to do. This next one is from Spain. Gamo's factories in Spain. They do about 1 billion pellets a year. So does Crossman. SIG Sauer over here we've been talking about, they're in Brazil. But what they did was they took a BB and they glued it right down inside, or pressed it down inside of a hollow head. I think that's rather clever. I don't know that they get the credit for it. I've seen on YouTube for the past 10 or 12 years, young air rifle gunners have taken hollow heads and taken some super glue and put their own BBs in the hollow heads. And it worked pretty good. It's got a nice smooth round head. It gets down to the target, and once it hits, the 20 caliber becomes 20, 30, 40 caliber, all because of that BB in it. Let's come up here to the H&N brand. Here again is H&N is German, very well made. Here are 5 from a packet that we call a sampler packet that allows you to try out 5 of their best sellers. That's certainly a better thing to do than buying all the pellets that you see on this table. But right here, this is kind of a half dome and half hunter's point. I think H&N did a pretty clever thing here. They kind of made it an in-between, and they call this the Cuda, or Barracuda, if you will, Barracuda, as a very good pellet to be used. Here's their hollow head, but the hollowness in the top kind of looks like they took I'm sure they didn't, but a Phillips screwdriver and put a little cross right in the top. That's their hollow head. Then this, which I consider a hollow head, and by the way, H&N calls this their hunter. They call this the Barracuda. This one here with the hollow head, they call this the crow. And I hunt crows. They're nasty animals and they're hard to kill, and that looks like it'll do the job. Over here, using that nozzler technology a bit, they put an insert into a hollow head. This again is made out of an alloy, it's not a plastic. And then they call that the Hornet. And then this one here is called the Silver. I think this last one's kind of interesting. I'll show you why. It's got a hunter's point on it. But look at the sides. We now have several places where the rifling of your air gun makes contact with this pellet, keeping it pointed in the right direction and aimed in the right direction. More rifling, perhaps better spin. Let's move on to from the 22 to the 25 calibers. 25 is made here again by Gamo with a BB inside the hollow head. And then along comes Benjamin. Benjamin is made by Crossman, and when they use this Benjamin name, it's a little more expensive, supposedly a little better quality, dome-shaped pellet. And then JSB makes theirs. JSB seems to me to be just a little shinier, a little lighter, so maybe a little bit more alloy in with that lead to make it harder. So the two, I probably prefer this JSB. When we get over here to the 357s, we see that Crossman entered something actually called the Nozzler, and Mr. Nozzler designed this. He put a plastic tip in it that makes that hollow head open up, but yet the plastic tip keeps the pellet or the bullet round and going through the air smoothly. Now here's an interesting tale of two 35 or 357 caliber pellets. One of these comes from JSB, this one here, and the other one comes from Hatsan Vortex. If you look up here at the tins, you'll see the Hatsan Vortex. This is new. JSB's been around a long time. JSB is the Czechoslovakian company, and they used to make AK-47 bullets for the Russians. But after the Berlin Wall fell and the world became more peaceful, they now make 1 billion pellets a year. And they do some private label, as all the companies do. And in this case, Hatsan went to JSB. You can see right here, made in the Czech Republic. And JSB said, sure. But is there a difference between these two? I think so. I think this Vortex is a little darker than the JSB. So I think JSB puts a little bit more alloy, I could be wrong, than the Vortex version of it. And lastly here, for 357, we have a variety of slugs. This is the one you don't want to use. The rifling in air guns is much like a straw, the barrel is, compared to a barrel of a powder gun, which is quite thick. And something as hard as brass, some of this is steel in that color, this could wear out the rifling pretty doggone fast. However, the rest of these are all lead, and they just have different weights to them. This is a painted lead. But nonetheless, these all weigh different amounts, and this is really where all air gunning is going to go. Air gun manufacturers have the velocity now, the compression to get pellets downrange fast. They know that the slug doesn't have some of the problems of a pellet. In this particular slug, notice that in 3 areas it meets the rifling of the gun to keep it in line, keep it going straight, and to get a nice spin on it. Up here, you'll see a variety of slugs that I have. I picked these up at gun shows, cheaper than if I had bought them from an air gun supplier, and buy them even, as you can see over here, by the 500s, and they don't cost a lot when you do it this way. What you don't want to do with these is I've actually had one get stuck in the barrel because that brass is not as giving as lead is. So don't use these. One of the things that air guns have more recently is choked barrels. And a choked barrel means it chokes down, it's a little bit smaller. And that helps lead pellets get tighter at the ends. They've got this huge speed as they come down the barrel, and they get tight for that final touch of accuracy and rifle spin. And that choke helps them become more accurate. It doesn't do well with these kind of brass bullets. They're not chokeable. From what I can see, the airgun manufacturers will ultimately, in the next 10 to 12 years, almost all will be making slug guns, and very few pellet guns, because the slug offers better stability, more weight. They can still, with their air, get that thing up to 1,000 feet a second, not break the speed of sound. That's one thing they don't want to do, is get up over 1,050. That's where you hear that wing sound as it goes through the air. They don't want to do that. They want to keep their guns backyard friendly. They want to keep them field friendly, so that this deer or wild boar or coyote you're shooting doesn't, a pack of them doesn't hear it on the other side of the hill. So that's what backyard friendly helps us, good silent guns with air. At the same time, they want that energy that comes down range. Right now, it looks like maybe 850 feet a second is that sweet spot where most pellets will do well. That's one of the things you want to do, is you find the right pellet or slug for your gun, is to get that air pressure down to about 850. That seems to be a sweet spot. As I said last week, you want to, here it is right here. You want to do an inspection with a magnifying glass. Even though they are inspected at the factory, I've seen this, and the girls take a plate full of them and give it about a 3-second visual, and they're trying to find pellets that don't have nice round skirts that make great contact all the way around, and then they pass them on. Trust me, it's not a good enough inspection. Only you, looking at 10 or 20 at a time, can come up with that good inspection. Secondly, we want to wash them in a bowl with Dawn detergent. You'd be surprised at the crud and the little metal particles that come off into that bowl. Then you want to scoop them into a strainer like this and run some water over them so they get clean, and throw that bowl out. Those are particles that aren't going to fall down the barrel and into the workings of your gun later on. Now with these clean and dry, bear with me here, you want to lubricate them. Those of you say, I don't think I'm supposed to lubricate pellets. Oh yes, you are. Just like a piston in an engine, once it's lubricated, it has better compression. It keeps temperatures down too, which we're not too worried unless you have a machine gun, full auto pellet gun. But we want this compression saved, and a little oil film on pellets really helps. A lot of bullets are already lubed. Some pellets come to you lubed, and that's what makes them so popular. But lube is a little different than using the word cheap, thin oil. We don't want to do that. There's actually a lube that's designed. It's kind of like half thick grease and half thin oil, and it makes that right consistency. It's a can called Shooter's Choice, and the product is called FP10. That works. And also, I use a can of fogging oil. We use fogging oil on motorcycle engines, wave runner engines, snowmobile engines. Those beautiful aluminum finned engines turn to a gray, dull look after a season of storage. By spraying fogging oil in, that engine stays clean. Why? Because this fogging oil grabs a hold of the engine and the fins and stays there. It doesn't drain down below, and it protects it from air. That's what fogging oil can do to pellets. It'll cling to the pellet and stay there and go out the barrel. That's my second tip to you for accuracy. And the third tip is to use Air Venturi makes them, but other companies make them too. And here's a pellet for you. It's not made of lead. It doesn't have alloys in it. It's made of cotton. And we shoot these out the barrel. And it takes those particles, it takes that lube and takes it out. Don't aim it at your best friend. Put a bruise on the side of his butt if you did. But shoot it out downrange, and now your barrel will be clean and the rifle can sit there vertical and you don't have to worry about anything dripping down into the mechanism of it, and you'll be just fine. I think those tips will help you. Keep in mind that some manufacturers, I'll use 357 as my example, on expensive pellets, they'll make a 357. They'll make a 355, a 356, a 358. And why are they making them with these tiny tolerance differences? That's because one of them works in my gun better than it works in yours. And you can kind of look for the best diameter pellet to be shooting out of your gun. Well, that lubricant, washing them, getting them clean, that lubricant, all help. And then, of course, clean it when you're done. They'll help you find that right pellet or bullet for your gun quicker. This wraps up part 2 of pellets and bullets. I still have about 50% more I didn't even bring out. We'll do them another day. But this got a good start. And what I want you to consider on our YouTube is that we're kind of in shock. We have over 55,000 views so far, and we've only been around for 7 months. We bring out a video every 2 weeks. And if you would like to be on that list, be sure and subscribe. You can always unsubscribe, but consider subscribing and you'll be notified by Google that a new one is out. And we've got a great one coming out on trail cameras, in which this is hunting season's just a couple of months away. And if you're going to wait till then and go out in the field, I don't know how successful you're going to be. Good hunters start now with trail cameras, checking the patterns of deer, going from their sleep areas to their eating areas. You need to be finding out where those paths are now. And you'll want to see the next one called their trail cameras. Be sure to tune in and subscribe. Be sure and give us a thumbs up. If you don't, Google gives us a thumbs down. The more thumbs up we have, the more visual we be. Google put our videos on the sides or bottom of all their zillions of viewers that check them out. And lastly, leave a comment. I answer them all personally. I like answering them. So if you want to leave me a message and get a message back, I'll be glad to respond. Why would we do all of this? The answer is simple. You want to be air gun sharp.